If you think of a mobile phone, an invoice says mobile phone, you know what that is, it's a phone. If you've got an invoice that says mobile app development, you know what that is. It's not a mobile phone. It's something completely different, but it's got the same word in. Or if you've got an invoice that says a mobile billboard, that's nothing to do with tech at all, right? It's an advertising thing. So how do you understand, get a handle on spend when they've got all these similar words? You can't use the keyword stuff that we used to use in the olden days.
Alan just described a $10 billion problem hiding in plain sight. Companies processing millions of invoices, contracts, purchase orders, all using human language that defies simple categorization. Consider, a Fortune 500 company might process 500,000 invoices annually, with traditional keyword matching achieving maybe 60% accuracy. That's 200,000 invoices that require manual review, 3 minutes per invoice, 10,000 human hours, 5 full-time employees just fixing categorization. Now multiply that across every text-heavy process. RFPs, supplier communication, contract reviews. This isn't a procurement problem. It's everywhere. Unstructured text meets business logic.
Language models were insane for dealing with that sort of problem where you've got strings of text where you need to look at the whole piece of the text to understand. If something is, mobile, the words mobile next to the words phone is probably going to be a piece of IT hardware. And then it handles spelling mistakes very well, all these kinds of things. So we found that by bringing language models in, we could get accuracies in the high 90s, which is pretty cool without much human intervention.
Symphony started using language models in late 2021, before ChatGPT made them mainstream. Moving from 60% to 95% accuracy doesn't just save time, it fundamentally changes what's possible. With that level of accuracy, you can now build features that were previously impossible. Automated spend analysis, real-time supplier risk alerts, instant contract intelligence. The constraint shifts from, can we categorize this, to what insights can we extract?
And then there are other use cases that we found very useful around things like summarizing RFI responses. You send out questionnaires to 50 potential suppliers. You don't want to read through all their boilerplate stuff they've sent back. So you can do some summarizing around that. Or with contracts, extracting key terms out of contracts. These are all kind of classic bread and butter LLM use cases. So if you've got a key supplier who's just had some kind of disaster on their locations, we want to know that so we can flag risk scores about that supplier. There's a lot of it that is text that's not numbers. So if you've got, let's say in a magical world, you'd have a beautiful backend system where everything was perfectly categorized and all the data was in it was correct, et cetera, and you just run your analysis on it. That world doesn't exist. So you have the description on the invoice might not match the description on the purchase order, for example. You have lots of, there's lots of RFPs. Everyone loves to hate RFPs, but they're a fundamental part of how we kind of do business.
Alan's talking about procurement, but this pattern repeats everywhere. Customer service tickets that mention battery could mean laptop battery or car battery or battery location. Medical records where cold is mentioned, that might mean temperature, symptoms, or storage. The shift from keywords to context isn't an upgrade. It's a foundational change in what software can now process.
So we built up, it's taken a lot of work over the years to figure out the sort of guardrails and the logic that you need to do around the edges to be able to bring that to production. So data that it's never been trained on before. That might mean, we've brought on a new business unit that describes their spend in a different way, or we've brought on a new supplier who's selling completely new stuff that we haven't seen before. So those sorts of changes in the underlying data, we need to flag to make sure that a person, a human in the loop, has a look to do some QA activities and steer it. With the RFI stuff, we were using RFIs for summarizing. We tried to do comparisons, but we just found the hallucinations were too big to even make it worth productionizing that kind of feature. So we scrubbed that. There are obviously issues, as we know, with hallucinations and these language models being overconfident in what they're doing. But that's one of the big use cases that we had. And then there are other use cases that we found very useful.
The context revolution isn't coming. It's firmly here. Symphony achieved 95% accuracy on spend classification, 3 years ago, before most companies even started experimenting. But here's the insight. Understanding context isn't the end goal, it's the enabler. When software can truly understand text, not just match patterns, entire categories of previously impossible products become buildable. The question for every team is simple. What intractable problem in your business just became solvable?